Hello and welcome back to the Metropole Grid. My name is Andre.
And I'm Eric.
And thanks so much for joining us. This is round 2 of the Canadian Nationals 2023 here in Montreal at Silver Goblin. This is the top cut, and this is round 2 in the top cut, which is always a really exciting time because the top cut is held in double elimination. So both of these players, we're now watching the lower table. So both of these players in their first round, unfortunately, took their first L. So whoever loses this matchup, that is the end of their Canadian Nationals run. So pretty high stress here.
Yeah, it's got to be such a stressful situation to be in. I can't even imagine this.
Obviously, some players take it back from this position, but first round, getting that L, it's ride or die at this point. On the right, we have Diogene again from Montreal, a player you've probably seen his name on Netrunner DB doing a lot of posts, and he's playing Essa, the sabotage rudder, a lot of central server runs, a lot of good pressure. Eric, you played Essa. I think you play Essa a fair bit. What do you think of Essa right now in standard?
I think it's a lot of fun. It's the ID that is easiest for me to just sort of shut my brain off and say, I'm going to mess up so much of what the Corp has planned that they are going to not be able to do what they sit down at the table thinking they're going to be able to do. And I'm really interested to see what Diogene has in this ESSA list, because Diogene has put out a lot of really creative decks, and ESSA, I feel like there's sort of been some homogeny. It's all come down to the ghost ton kind of list. So
yeah, we're definitely going to see some of those cards, but Diogene, a very aggressive player, loves to send to centrals, and we're going to definitely see the disruption. Now on the left, this is Marc-André, another local Montreal player. I've been playing Arkham Horror specifically with Marc-André now for I think 6 years, and he was actually a bit surprised to hit top tables at this point. This is a really, really good standing for how his tournaments usually go. And so we're going to see again, Asa group is what he's playing. He has a lot of stuff he wants to do. I think this deck is the sort of Anoetic Void Mana Garm versions, Wage Workers, mind you, being a new card from the set. So we're going to see a lot of, efficiency. Now, this opening, I think, is definitely very noteworthy. It's, I think, kind of worth noting that Marc-André doesn't have a lot of experience into ESSA. So you're going to see some of the lines he might not see coming. He's going to have to be reading a couple of those cards. But what is one of the first servers that you want to protect when you're playing against ESSA?
Yeah, HQ for sure, because of Shatuska.
Yeah.
You don't want to sabotage 4 off of turn 2 or turn 1.
Yeah, that's a big one. Again, against ESSA, a lot of times you want to ice up HQ as soon as possible. Now, Carpe Diem coming down, rolling HQ anyways. That's going to be our HQ pressure this turn. But that is Sabotage 4 on a successful run from HQ. So as much as possible in the early narratives, you want to prevent that from happening, because Sabotage 4, that's an immense number. We'll see again, R&D Ice, that can be for the finality, but Airblades X, this is the fun sort of Diogene twist on this sort of deck. This is one of the new cards that allows you to prevent net damage during a run. So the idea is that he plays 3 of these and then 3 Banhars and just sends it as much as he can. He's breaking ice with Rollerblades as opposed to cards from hand, and it allows him to have a lot of aggression.
Yeah, that's sort of it's very opposite of the Anarch way to care about your cards, but
yeah, he'll just send essentials now. So technically the remote server, it's still safe. Mind you, losing a finality here through the Marrow core damage. So we're going to have still good hand size. We're at 6 hand size. I believe that die on top of ESSA is going to be tracking it. And these click trackers, mind you, Diogene likes to count where he's going, and that's going to be Sabotage 2. And Marc-André just sends it 2 off the top of the deck. That's risky. We went down to only 2 cards in hand, 1 after the Nico. Diogene's going to see it fully operational. That's the 1 card in hand you want to recover if you have low cards in hand, let alone an economy problems. But 9 credits for doing okay.
This is some aggressive play from Diogene. I think you generally want to be taking 1 core damage a turn with ESSA to get the maximum sabotage, and that can be so disruptive. I sat across the table yesterday at a tournament from ESSA, and just sabotage 2, and the sabotage off of the Marrow as well is super disruptive, which often gets forgotten.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think Diogene's gonna be on top of that trigger, but that is such an easy one to forget. And we also talked about icing HQ, and that's inherently sabotage is a form of HQ pressure. Mind you, Asa group building up their remote server, we can probably score on an agenda here without, I think this deck's probably without seamless launch, so Wage Workers on the table is probably what you're gonna need. But the idea is that if we're going down to low hand size, which we are kind of right now, mind you, playing fully operational here just for some credits, that means the cards that you're sabotaging from hand are going to only leave agendas, because you don't want to sabotage agendas. So with 1 card in hand, there's not a lot of options here to sabotage. If you land a Chastushka, they're coming off the top of R&D no matter what you want.
Yeah, the sabotage off of the top of R&D blind just feels like, it's half of a deep dive for for not much.
Yeah, mind you, I think there's some errors here. There's a couple events that Diogene's going to be playing. I think he's playing as if he has Ghost Tongue down, which reduces the cost of all events by 1. I think here he accidentally also drew a card and drew 2 cards, so he's going to spend his next click drawing the card anyways. In theory, you should call a judge over, but that is how that's resolved. So his turn here is just going to be drawing up. Back to Marc-André is allows him to score out, and just a Vitruvius, no over advancement. If you have a minute to over advance this card, it is so important in the matchup. Getting that recursion to pull a card back, that is anti-sabotage technology. It is immensely impactful. So we'll see just scoring out a largely a blank 3-2, whether that's going to cost him in terms of the narrative.
That saves you so much trouble if the Iquas get trashed off of the top and you peek at it and you suddenly aren't, holding your breath anymore.
HQ still wide open. We're going to mosh through a couple cards there, draw 3, gain 3. Again, throwing out a jailbreak, just want to find a bit deeper. I think right now Diogene knows, right? Like you draw a Chestushka, heaven forbid 2 Chestushkas, you just send it. That's so much damage in a single turn with 1 card in hand.
He's just digging for it so hard.
Like I don't blame him. Now the one thing that's interesting is what do you think that card on the remote server is?
The remote, that just looks like a Spin Doctor to me.
It has to be a Spin Doctor, right? If it was a Wage Workers, we would have rezzed it. If it was a Nico, a Maryland, we would have rezzed it. So I think right now, if you're considering to do any sort of sabotage, like there you go, Chestushka on HQ, I think you really are incentivized to challenge that Spin Doctor first. Because
this is a lesson that I've learned recently too. Yeah, you absolutely need to go get that Spin Doctor first, because otherwise you've just potentially wasted your entire Chestushka.
So ripping the card from hand, it looked like a Managarm, just 3 off the top. That is exactly what he's looking for. Just like, give me those fists. And I think the fists are going to come. That is 3 credits. I think we paid the full 3, but it's only going to get worse. Second Chestushka right in, 4 off the top of R&D. Like, Marc-André had to read that. Again, I don't think he's familiar with the sort of HQ pressure we're going to put on. And running archives here, that was sabotage 8 in a turn, if I'm not mistaken. Raising his finger, actually, he's... Before the run successful, I think he wants to do a take back here. He has a click left, so we haven't seen the S of sabotage. You can do a little bit more damage. There you go. There's a running hot.
Running hot. That is excellent tech for this. If you run and there's 2 Iquas in there and you can't steal them because you can't spend 2 clicks, then you're very sad about that.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you want the clicks left. We don't even have credits. I think that's going to be an issue too. But hitting a strike fund, well, I guess we have some credits. We can steal at least 1 Iqua, and there's 2 in the list. Mind you, open deck lists are going to help.
So, have we seen the 2 sabotage? No, we haven't. Off of
yeah, it was sabotage 10 in a single turn, and largely that's because HQ's left open, right? Like you don't want to let that happen. We haven't seen a Banhar yet, so there's no breakers produced. This is only because servers are open. But if that isn't a Spin Doctor on the table, this can be game in a single run. As much as we can only steal a single Iqua here. 3 clicks left. You could credit. I think again, you want 1 or 2 clicks left at least to check archives.
Yeah. I'm surprised there's no run on here on what we assume is the Spin Doctor.
Yeah, you definitely want to do the Spin Doctor first. If that is a Spin Doctor, that is dismantling a lot of the damage you put off with the sabotage here. And it is catch and altar. So not only is that going to refill the hand, now if this is not last click, you can run HQ and there's 2 cards in there. And it looks like, I think an Iqua did slip into there. And it looks like a Vitruvius as well. So there was 5 points at least in archives, and that's going to be back in the deck. I do think there's more points though in that pile.
It's just handing the deck over.
Yeah, you sort this out. It's a lot to look through. Yeah. 1 Vitruvius, 1 Spin Doctor.
1.
Yes, also very noteworthy. So first 2 points there for Diogene. Again, 10 sabotage, only leaking 2 points. That's a really pretty favorable trait when it comes to the HP.
So that running that Spin Doctor before sabotaging was potentially cost the game right there. I mean, that would have been the game.
Yeah, it would be. It's like kind of tricky because you have to see whether there was enough credits to threaten that, and then also anything else.
Right.
But yeah, you're right. If you trash that first, I think that turn is incredibly different. Mavirus from HQ, you trash that down. Again, just lowering cards in hand as much as the Mavirus might not do anything onto the board, just getting less options to sabotage. As much as we've seen 1 Finality, 2 Chestushkas, I think we've seen 2 Marrows so far. We're just waiting on the Ghost Tongue, 1 more pile of Fists, and there's usually, I think, like 2 Finality in the list, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. Yeah, I would be very surprised if we don't see, if the HQ pressure might let up here and then you get a Bonhar and into a Finality.
And this is like a really big deal. Again, we talked about Diogene. Watching Diogene play, he very has on HQ just a little too late, but you'll definitely take it. But Diogene loves that sort of aggression and that sort of disruption. And you can see right now that he doesn't have any real way to contest the remote server. So while the deck actually has some really interesting tech, things like Boomerang, I think there's Slap Vandal in the list as well. He has some surprising ways to challenge the remote server. If Marc-Andre can just jam something in the remote server, it's definitely going to be a very, very different game. Take it and turn off there just to draw up. Marc-Andre healthy on 15 credits. Arguable whether he can even spend those credits before the end of the game. Double install an Asa. A lot of options of defensive upgrades. Anoetic Void, though, is definitely not going to do anything with no cards in hand, but double advance here. And Ikua taking him to 5 points is definitely something, but a Vitruvius with 2 counters might just be the more powerful play here.
Right, that's going to stave off a lot of the hurt of the sabotage.
Yeah. Moshing now, go through a Hush, an Airblade, and a Raindrops Cut Stone, so just gonna draw 3, gain 3 again. You're not gonna play all your cards in your deck. Why don't you cycle through those? I don't think the deck actually has any like functional breakers. It just has like those kind of breaker tricks, which like, yeah, if you just need a land of Finality and a couple of Chastushkas, and that can be enough.
That is such a wild strategy to take into such a huge tournament like this. It takes a lot of bravery.
Yeah.
I can't do it.
And there you go, Boomerang Chastushka.
Oh my God.
So that's the idea, right? Okay, Gatekeeper, resing this so that you're going to force the Boomerang use. That's still going to be Sabotage 4. And with Marc-Andre dumping his hand for that HB efficiency, that is, you know, still just going to be 4 cards off the top of the deck. Archives is not iced, and for what it's worth, it's not always a great plan to ice Archives against Essa. It just kind of forces out, you know, another tool, a breaker. But in this sort of Essa list, it might matter. We're just checking. 4 cards straight off the top, full random, Ablative, Magnet, and Ikua.
Ikua, there it is.
I don't know if he has the clicks here. I don't think he does. He has the credits, but he doesn't have the single click. The Ikua stays.
Yeah, no Spin Doctor on the table, though. But if that is a Vitruvius in the remote, then that's a problem for Diogene.
You can score the Vitruvius, use your last click to, you know, get the Vitruvius counter, Ikua back into the remote server. So here, Marc-Andre has some options. Either he can score out the agenda, or he can spend some clicks drawing up for Ice, drawing up for a Spin Doctor. Again, we've seen 2 Spin Doctors so far, 1 removed from game 1 in Archives. So his outs to get it out of Archives are pretty low, but he can draw just to get Ice out, because right now, Diogene doesn't have any Icebreakers, and Banhart doesn't work until you get it down start turn. He's just scoring out Ikua. He's leaving an Ikua in Archives.
Ooh.
Marrow,
I mean,
last card from
what
hand.
are your options?
I think there's a chance that it looks so safe in the remote server, you can draw 3 times and then get an Ice on Archives. Because if it's like a drafter, if it's a gatekeeper, you have to force an answer. And I think the Ikua on the remote server might be pretty safe.
Right. Now, Diogene's economy is a little bit struggling here. But
we're going in. That was a Wage Workers. Just that was last discarded to the Marrow. And so we're going to steal the Ikua. We're now 5-5. Being on game point against Essa is so difficult when you know any random sabotage can cost you the game. Marc-Andre drawing up there. I think he has a fully op in hand. Whether you want to use that to draw instead of clicking to draw, that's always an option. Again, 7 credits means that if Diogene can run the remote server and res 1 or 2 pieces of ice, that actually might put Marc-Andre in a place that he can't score out. We're drawing into, I think we have 2 barriers in hand, Tattoo Bola and a Hagen, but not the agenda. Fully op though. I think we
4 credits.
Just for credits, yeah. Again, we haven't seen multiple remote servers. We've seen so much like unbearable pressure on centrals that we haven't been able to go horizontal and control, you know, that narrative.
This game escalated so quickly.
It went 0 to 60 so fast.
Yeah.
Sabotage 10 in a single turn and only 2 points, but now we're drawing up again. If we want Banhart to do anything, we need to get him down before you end your turn. Because Banhart is a start a turn trigger marker server. It looks like draw 3. Last click, there he is. Falcon and Dog. So now a single ice is just going to be maybe 2 counters off the Airblades. Let alone you can choose to take the damage. It's optional. You can do a mix even, 1 subroutine at a time.
Yeah, are you saving the Airblades for an on-encounter effect against anything here? I don't
think there is any.
So. Yeah.
Because like the only one that you're really worried about is Ablative, and it's on res, right?
Right. And yeah, that wouldn't do anything about it.
That's a Vitruvius in the remote server. Vitruvius install credit. There's 2 cards in hand. They're both barriers. That means you have a safe way to eat a Sabotage 2. We'll see where the Banhart goes. Looks on R&D, we might just have a Finality here or any sort of like multi-axis pressure. We saw jailbreaks in the list. That's going to be a jailbreak. So whatever this ice is here, again, you need to keep some amount of money for the remote server.
12 credits.
Yeah. You know the ice here can be dealt with once for free with Banhart, but only once. I think you said no res, but we're taking the back. Oh, that is a very liberal take back there.
Yeah.
So I think Diogene wanted to have 2 credits so that he can steal Ikwa. For what it's worth, I don't think there is another Ikwa in the list, but off the top of the deck is a virus. We can trash that again. This is Jailbreak. We're going to see one more card, ends up fully operational. Top of R&D holds.
At this point, after shuffling a fair amount of agendas back into the R&D, you have to assume that the density's somewhat high in there.
I think it's not unreasonable considering what point in the game is. Like, we have a lot of points out. But running hot here, this is a really important sabotage. Sabotage 2 after running hot. This is going to give a bunch of clicks back to Diogene, so he has even longer of a turn that Marc-Andre has to survive for. But the winning points are in the remote server. The damage is going to hit an Airblades, okay? But here the sabotage is so important. Again, his hand has 2 ice. That's a really free sabotage 2 here. You don't care about that ice if you win next turn. But we do know the top of the deck is safe. Now that is the fully op into an unknown. So now we know there's an unknown card in archives and the top RD is safe. Keeping those cards in hand, I'm not sure what he's going to do with those barriers.
Right. Yeah. Clearing the two off of the top of R&D is now has opened the way up for Diogene to go peek again and dig to the 3rd and the 4th card.
Yeah, because Banhart wasn't used, right? Banhar's only used when the ice is encountered. So R&D is fair game. There's 1 card in archives. There's 2 servers you can attack this turn. We're checking archives here. Again, this could easily be game. There's fully operational and the last Spin Doctor. That won't matter again. The game is in the remote. But the top of R&D is unknown. Running the remote server.
Ooh.
With a single Managarm here, I don't think you're sweating it. If you just have a Managarm, I don't think you have to res any ice.
Yeah, what is Diogene's plan to get through these ice, I wonder? Okay, changing his mind.
Yeah, I'm not sure if Marc-Andre said anything about the res or not, but we're moving it. This makes more sense. This is the one server that you actually can run, and this is an unknown card. Now, if you res here, it's kind of useless. If this is the last turn of the game, the Banhart, it's just a Hagen. So that's going to be 2 net damage either from hand for the Airblades, but this is an unknown card on the top of the deck. Airblades?
Using the Airblades, yeah. Okay.
Single axis? Off roll off!
That's wild.
For 2 points, and Marc-Andre had it in the remote server. If he just sabotaged from hand, he would have won the game.
Yeah, that was tight. That came down to the wire.
Yeah, that early game, again, I think Marc-Andre doesn't have a lot of experience against the sabotage. That open HQ is something that, you definitely see the more that you play against Essa, because that Chestushka is the most pressure you can see. Eventually, you worry about finality. But yeah, there, if he just had the barriers and he sabotaged those from hand instead of opening the top of R&D, I think he had that game on lock. As aggressive and as destructive as the early game was. But it looks like, unfortunately, Marc-Andre had a great run here at Canets. He was super, super happy with his finish. And Diogene is going to continue on. So well played to both players, and specifically this was a short one, so we're gonna just jump over to round 3 right away. Eric, you want to join me?
Yeah, let's do it.
Let's jump over. All right, round 3 top cut. We saw Diogene survive. That's him on the right. The role said that he's gonna be playing Essa again, but on the left, that's Sven playing Isowak Adaptix. We saw Sven already playing this deck in the series on the channel in Swiss. He's playing a punitive counter-strike list, and that is something I think that gets a lot of players by surprise, especially in Swiss rounds, but very importantly, this is, open information. This is open deck list, is top cut. So Diogene knows this list is trying to hurt him, and inherently, you can kind of hurt Essa. If Essa doesn't get down Marrow, the hand size can be low, you want to be aggressive, you want to multi-access, it can be hard to check archives. How often are you flatlining while playing Essa, Eric?
I haven't died all that often, actually, but I think it's probably just because I haven't played a lot against like PE stuff with Essa. I think that Sven here is automatically like my personal hero for making top cut in a nationals tournament with Isowak. That is awesome. Isowak is a pet project of mine that I have not been able to make work, but I love it.
Yeah, I've seen you grinding the Isowak for sure. And not only is Sven playing Isowak here at Top Tables, this is the first event in Netrunner he's ever been out to. He came in, drove in from Ontario, mind you, and just absolutely having a fantastic time here. So Isowak Adaptix, we saw before. Again, we didn't see the ability to be relevant. It's more so like a bit of a surprising shell. And if you do install advance and leave stuff on the table, it can convert to more points, technically, if you want to look at it like that. So even if you put things on the table, whether they're traps or not, with the open deck lists, we're going to find out how this looks. But looks like...
Right, so as long as you don't advance the agenda that you have scored that round. So you can place advancement counters on them, and then you have to get one fewer point to win the game, which is can be pretty impactful.
Especially if you're only playing 5-3s, right? You can win on 2 agendas, whether it's Seamless Launch, La Costa, or just leaving them there saying, run it. What are you going to do? You're going to die to Fuji and then Punitive Counter-Strike. Now, there you go. There's the HQ respect. That might be some AS of practice. Maybe that tells you something about HQ, but you don't want to get Chestushka early. Ghost Tongue as the start again. That is the economy piece you want as soon as possible. The deck is running mostly events for economy. I would say entirely events for economy. So the 1 core damage to reduce a lot of costs here. We'll see what card comes from hand.
This is like the one card that I'm mulliganing for the hardest. You really wanted Ghost Tongue to start the game.
Yeah, super nice, because the economy in these decks are kind of limited, and so that card easily can be a 5 to 8 credit card. It's wild, like, you work so hard to get something that's mostly Paladin Puemo, but yeah, very, very important.
It's surprising how much it adds up.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I think that was 2 off the top. And mind you, advanced card on the table, we're not even making a fuss about it. It looks like an NGO front. You'd be surprised for it to be anything else. And if it's just a 5 credit NGO front, that's not too bad at all. Again, the first credit gives you the most value. The second advancement gives you slightly less. This is not the sort of deck I think that's going to be, well, in the mid to late game, it'll make you run through ice to kind of, fall into that trap. But at a minimum, we're getting some value back. 3 credits from the raindrops, cut stone.
That opening with the NGO definitely makes me think that Sven's maybe doesn't have the strongest opening hand, because that's kind of a desperation play in my mind.
Yeah, this deck is a money matters thing. The thing is, like, if the runner doesn't have a good thing, not that you can dirty laundry, but besides raindrops, cut stone, it's kind of hard to get value running that remote server. You're trading a click to like deny them 2 credits. Speaking of NGO for an off the top, for 1 credit, that goes another one. That's a lot of economy, mind you. A punitive Counter-Strike list needs a lot of money up front, so getting those economy cards trash is good. We saw Hansei off the top, another Hansei in hand, but the only things we have to trash with that is ice. So we're gonna keep drawing deeper.
Right, or the Hansei into the Hansei if you really have a plan for something else, but then you're limiting yourself in the future.
Yeah. It's really interesting. Like, Banharing into Jinteki can be very difficult. Cards like Anansi, Saisentan, you don't want to run into those, as much as Airblades actually can be quite good into the matchup on the other side, because you can run into those ice like Saisentan and break it for functionally free, if we want to call it that, as much as Anansi will still be an issue.
What is a card that we're discarding to the Hansei?
Yeah, I think we have a La Costa there too, if we want to build that remote server up for a while. Again, that card places advancements, it doesn't advance, so Isawak works really well. But R&D still wide open. I think there's 2 finales in the asset list that Diogene has, so with each one sent in, this is the big thing, is Diogene has to be careful. He has to be a bit measured. If he ever steals too many points in a single turn while not having an economy, and right now, obviously he is behind an economy, this can be a problem. There you go, finality for 1 credit.
Yeah.
We're going to take a core damage. We're down to, there's a couple problems here. We're going to be down to 3 hand size, and there's a chance that you can steal a Fuji, go down to 1 card in hand, and then punitive. The single punitive can knock you out of the game very quickly.
Oh, good hit.
Chestushka, yeah. Going to replace that draw, and we'll see where the sabotage comes from. Again, I think we've seen a fair bit of ice in hand, and what it's worth, this is really sick. Sven isn't icing R&D, because he knows, come get an access. It's going to be a bacterial. It's going to be a Fuji. You're going to steal it. I'm going to draw a lot, I'm going to do damage, and you're going to die to punitive Counter-Strike. Like, this is what we saw in there earlier in the Swiss rounds, saying, like, come on in, the water's warm, because it's very deadly if you steal the wrong agenda at the wrong time, especially 14 to 4 credits.
Yeah, I think the Chetushka is the safer play. I mean, obviously HQ is iced here, but like if you just sabotage enough to the point where you win at a single access off of archives, then you don't need to worry about the punitives. But the finalities here is, you could steal 2 by accident.
Yeah, that's a really good point. If you Chestushka, you don't access the card, so there's no way that you can get punitive Counter-Strike. It's hard to check archives, because if you don't win, like, you can lose. But it's going to be 1 from hand, 1 from deck, and that's going to be look at 4 cards. There's a bit of a judge call there, not sure what it was. Spin Doctor at the top, considering whether you want to trash that.
Please trash. Yes.
You're gone for 2, your credits are pretty low still. Thimble Rig, just a piece of ice. After that, a Simulation Reset, interesting card too as well. And that's going to be followed by a Send a Message. Ooh. 3 points. I think we have 1 ice on the table to res. Hopefully it's something nice and beefy, but just a Thimble Rig.
Oh no, it's the saddest little res. How many cards are in Diogene's hand right now?
4, but his hand size is less than that. Now check.
Oh, and checking. Oh, that's brave.
I think 2 of the cards came off of R&D across 2 different turns. 1 this turn, 1 in the last. There's a La Costa that came from hand. Evic from hand. Mind you, you can shuffle the face down, so there's less information where the cards come from. And back to your programming. Not 7 points. So that, you see how Diogene's body language has slowed down here? He knew, oh no, I have done something wrong here. Because he understands on 2 credits, bacterial programming is going to fire. This means Sven can look at the top 7 cards of the deck. We know the top 2, but if at least at some point down there we find a punitive counterstrike with 14-2 and a hand size of 3, it's super easy to do 6 meat damage with a single punitive counterstrike. It doesn't really matter that you have 2 hand size, 3 hand size. So now he can put... Sorry?
We probably have a good 10 minutes to talk at this point.
I know.
Bacterial's going off.
At least this is pretty simple, right? Like, so you don't see just smash to hand, and that's actually really interesting. You could just take all these cards into HQ if you had the punitive, you put 1 on top of R&D, so you know you can't lose to return run. But also very interestingly, if you don't win the game in the next turn, is that you have these cards that you can put on top of the deck and memorize the order, and then you're kind of like quote unquote safe the sabotage because you know what you're drawing into as much as you're not drawing into anything that wins you the game.
Right. Yeah, to not immediately slap one back down signals a little bit that Sven didn't see the punitive, but
I'm not sure if 1 went back on the top of R&D. I think you definitely want to put 1 on top of R&D because now it is totally fresh. Whether Diogene has a click left here, it looks like he doesn't even have a click left to run R&D, so you don't need to put 1 on top of R&D here. So we're going to get a mandatory draw, and if we look at his hand, he doesn't have the punitive. He needs to top deck it, or he needs to draw it somehow.
So this is an unknown card coming off of R&D right now, right?
I believe so. He has the mandatory draw. I'm not sure if he's gone for it yet. He's thinking, and Diogene, I was standing right near there and watching Diogene's tone entirely change. Very, very cheerful guy. There we go, mandatory draw. He's joking, I got it. No, he doesn't have it. But Diogene immediately like sat back, realized I've made a terrible mistake. And let's see if he really has, because we don't have it yet. But Simulation Reset allows you to functionally draw 5 cards. Now it comes at a cost.
The odds of not seeing one right now seem bad. It seems like if I'm playing in Diogene C, I assume I'm dead right now.
You don't, yeah, you assume you could be. Now, we haven't seen a Mindscaping for draw. There's not a lot of Jinteki draw in faction, so click for draw, mind you. You still have a click after this if you still don't have it. But trash 5, and then you have to shuffle those 5 back. So cards like Spin Doctor make sense. That's how you can get, 2 draw for a single click. Oh, we have to catch up on hand size. Again, I think Diogene's a bit rattled here, but Sven doesn't have it right now. So we're going to trash 5.
You trash 5 and you put 5 cards, not necessarily the same 5 cards in.
Any 5 cards, yeah. Face down or face up. So the Spin Doctor is definitely going to go back. I think you want to go back anything that like requires you to play the game longer than potentially this turn. But also, oh man, he keeps flipping his cards up and back. I can't remember which side's face up. Hopefully he does. The Sim Reset, mind you, is removed from game.
I like to separate them into 2 stacks.
Yeah, no, he has his own system here. It's really interesting to watch. So we'll see the face downs again. Those are the ones that were just trash from hand. So they're all fully known, obviously, to Sven. We're going to put some stuff back there again. Spin Doctor, I think, made its way back. That is technically, yeah, I think it's going back because that is, 2 draw for 1.
This is a big think moment. There's a lot of cards to look through there. Simulation Reset is a card that you don't see fired all that often, and it takes a while, especially the first time you play it. Which I'm assuming this is not the first time for Sven, but...
Oh man, there's so much card manipulation there. I'm not even sure if the Spin Doctor made it back in, but that's absolutely wild, all those cards being flipped. So that's 5 cards back in the deck, and we're going to draw 5. Again, here, if we don't find the punitive, we still have to close the game out. And it's a really bad place for Sven if you're playing a punitive deck and the runner's on 6 points. If we can't find the kill here, it is going to be...
Then you have to score out.
Yeah, you have to score out against sabotage, right? Like a single one wrong sabotage costs you the game.
Right. It's so easy to lose at that point. And you can't even leave anything to bluff at that point because any access is death.
Yeah, the bluffing gets so much more interesting when it's a game point. We're giving this one a really good shuffle here. Again, draw 5, and we still have 2 clicks. You need 1, obviously, to play the punitive. But otherwise, you have a click to draw. Sven sitting back there knowing, like, please, I need to draw this here. Gonna lay out 5 on the table again. That's what we get. A click to draw 5. That's pretty rare in the game. Boom.
Oh, he found it.
He found it.
Diogene, like that cut, cutting the deck had some weight to it.
Oh yeah, you'd rather have some control in your fate, but sometimes that will show up. There are multiple punitives in the list, but good game to both players. Again, Diogene total change in his poise after he realized what he had done. Just going slow again. It's a really hard matchup. You need a Chistushka and not, run archives until it's really good. Maybe set up your money, get good hand size with Marrow, and don't get too much core damage after that. But it's definitely a really tricky line. But
right, with all this stuff, it's so easy, and hindsight is definitely in 2020 when you're sitting there at the table. Especially, I can't even imagine the pressure of being the top cut on your second potential loss. That seeing these lines, I'm sure, like 20 minutes later or even immediately, like you said, the body language change is just like, oh, right. Why didn't I think of that? Yep.
But hey, good game to both players. Sven is going to continue on in his journey in the top cut. Still first tournament doing well with one loss so far, but that's going to be the end of line for Diogene. And we wanted some aggressive ESA, we wanted some disruptions, and we got some really interesting games. So can't ask for better. Good games, Diogene. Really well played. And on that note, we're going to be going on to our top cut. We only have a couple players left. Eric, thanks so much for joining me. Do you want to shout out Neon Static really quickly on all the Netrunner stuff you're up to?
Sure. Yeah. So we have a YouTube channel and a podcast called Neon Static in both places. And we do recorded games kind of like this. Although I will say you've really upped the game, Andre. These are awesome. And also we're live streaming in-person play. Actually, by the time this comes out, it won't be tomorrow night, but I'm doing that bi-weekly with my buddy Nick. And yeah, stop by the channel and check out the podcast. And if you're looking for a familiar voice, episode 11, Andre joined us on our podcast, so you can listen to that.
Yeah, thanks for having me. The tabletop stuff, the tabletop games that y'all have been doing, especially the live stuff, I've been a huge fan of. So links to all that will be in the description. Eric, thanks again for joining me, and stay tuned. We'll be right back with some more Can-Nats Top Cut. Ciao. Hey, thanks so much for watching. It's a real treat to see ESA there at top tables. Sabotage, a relatively new mechanic in Netrunner, is so much fun. You get that aggression, you get that disruption, and inherently Sabotage gives the opponent a choice. The corporation gets to make some decisions. So you get that additional player expression, which is always such a treat. Shout out to Diogene, a very creative deck builder, getting those aggressive runs on centrals all the way into the top cut. Really well done. And of course, shout out to both of our corporation players here, to Marc-André. I've known for such a long time. We've been grinding Arkham Horror for basically since the game has come out, and such a great finish for him. He was really happy with how things went that day. And of course, to Sven, who at his first tournament ever came all the way down to Montreal, is going to continue on into the top cut, playing some very interesting decks as well. Well done. And thank you to Eric from Neon Static, who joined me for the commentary. Neon Static has been doing a podcast, they've been doing some gameplay video just like this, and they've recently started streaming live tabletop Netrunner. I believe it's every second Monday. So you can find links for all that sort of stuff if you want to see more tabletop play, just in the description. Thanks again, Eric. Of course, also thank you to all these names here. These are just some of the patrons that help support the Metropole Grid. A lot of time goes into editing these videos, into editing this whole Can-Nats series, and it just simply wouldn't be possible without the support from the community. So thank you so much to all these names, and of course the Daily Cast patrons. Now we're gonna continue on through our top cut. I think we've lost 2 or 3 players already, so we're down to the final 5 or the final 4. So we have some more top tier high stakes Netrunner left to come. Thanks again for watching. Ciao.